At night this boy can hear voices coming from his new house, and the drawings he makes are prophetic. Each member of the family is persecuted by an entity that forces them to leave the house, and if they don't they end up dead. So the father of the family goes with some experts in psychophony to help him find the cause of the deaths in the house and finish him or her. Welcome to Worth Recap. The film begins with a conversation between Eric and his doctor. Eric's parents called the doctor about Eric's sleep problems. She attributes the trouble sleeping to Eric's family's recent move. When she asks him why he has trouble sleeping, Eric replies that the voices always wake him up asking him to draw some things. She asks him if he listens to them now. Eric tells her yes, but that he can't tell her what they are saying. Before leaving the house, the doctor talks with Eric's parents, Daniel and Sarah. She tells them that the boy's sleep problems may be caused by the stress of the recent move to his new house. Since Eric's parents are dedicated to buying houses, remodeling them and then selling them. Returning to Eric, we see that his walkie-talkie begins to emit strange sounds out of nowhere. Once the doctor gets into her car, she turns on the radio but it begins to fail, emitting strange sounds. Shortly after, a fly enters the doctor's ear which causes her eyes to become bloodshot and she drives much faster, while meanwhile, Eric begins to draw something. The doctor collides with a tree and a branch of it crosses her, killing her instantly. Shortly after, the fly comes out of her ear. Returning to Eric, we see that his drawing was a branch with blood. In the house, Eric, Daniel's father, sees how in a wall of his house there is a crack from which several flies come out. Eric calls him over the walkie-talkie to get a ball out of the pool. Eric's mother calls him to take a bath. In the bathroom, Eric begins to hear strange sounds. Eric heard in these sounds the voice of his father telling him that he hates him. When his mother enters, Eric asks him if his father hates him. His mother reassures him by telling him that his father loves him very much. At night, Sarah asks Daniel what he talked about with Eric. He doesn't know what he's talking about, so Sarah decides to drop the matter. Shortly after going to sleep, Daniel begins to hear noises and decides to go investigate. Meeting the walkie-talkie, hearing in it the voice of his son, and as he listens, he sees that something was behind him watching him. In Eric's room, he sees the silhouette of a person behind a blanket. Eric quickly hides under the sheets. At that moment his father takes the sheet off him, scaring him. His mother arrives and tries to reassure him. The next day, Eric is expelled from school for attacking the principal. That is why his parents decide that Dr. Carmen comes every day. Eric tells them that the doctor is dead. When they ask him who told him, he says that the voices, they do not believe him and call the doctor, but they are informed that he suffered an accident in which he lost his life. At night, Eric begins to draw what the voices tell him. His father hears noises and goes to investigate while his mother goes to Eric's room. However, he is not there. The father sees Eric's clothes at the entrance and goes out to look for him. When he reaches the pool, he sees the body of his son floating in it, and although he tries to rescue him, it was already too late. After Eric's funeral, his parents are very dismayed. So the mother, Sarah, decides to leave the house to get away from the memories. On the other hand, Daniel decides to stay because he needs to finish remodeling the house. Daniel begins to watch videos that he recorded of his son. While something is watching him, his wife sends him a message asking how Daniel is. He sends a voice message to his wife saying that he is fine. The next morning his wife calls him to find out how he was, because in the message he sent her the day before, strange background noises such as screams could be heard. Daniel decides to listen to the message he sent on a computer to isolate the background noise, and what he hears is his son's voice asking for help. Daniel decides to go to a book signing of an expert in strange psychophonies named German. Daniel asks him to listen to what he caught, but he refuses, but at Daniel's insistence he agrees to go to Daniel's house with his daughter Ruth. She tells him he asks for a place in the house to install his equipment. Then Daniel talks to German about his son's death, and German tells him that his son's death was caused by something or someone, and that what is heard on the recording could be something that Daniel does not want to hear. Even so, he decides to continue with the investigation. Ruth is installing thermal cameras and microphones in Eric's room to capture whatever is in that house. German begins to investigate the house, while his daughter watches him from the monitors. But when he turns on the thermal vision of the cameras, he sees what looks like a person in Eric's room. Ruth thinks it is Daniel and asks her father to I took him out of the house because he interferes with the investigation. However, his father tells him that he is seeing Daniel sitting outside the house. Ruth turns off the thermal vision to see who was in Eric's room and finds nothing. German decides to go to Eric's room to investigate. At that moment the communication shows interference, and when Ruth normalizes, Ruth tells him that what was in the room is in front of him. German ignores it and a very loud sound is heard on the intercom which scares him. That night German sees a silhouette pass near his room and decides to follow her to the kitchen where he sees his dead wife. He believes it is a dream, however he obeys what she tells him. His wife Sophie tells him how much she misses him and he begins to cut her wrists so that they can get back together, and although German refuses at first but ends up accepting, and as he advances he sees that Sophie's figure changes for a more emaciated one. Ruth arrives in the kitchen and sees her father slashing his wrists and stops him. Passing the scene we see Sarah receive a call with the voice of her son asking for help. The next morning German is still sleeping when an entity appears near his bed trying to touch him, leaving before doing so. Ruth goes out for air and finds herself in a tree on the property and sees many cats hanging. Daniel and German are burying the cats, and German comments that the voice Daniel heard could not be his son's, also the things they see or hear could be false. Sarah arrives at the house and talks to Daniel. Ruth went to town to buy supplies, and when she passed near a church a nun calls her to tell her about the house. Back at home, Sarah is in her son's room and sees him playing with his toys. When he approaches her, she gets under the bed, and when she tries to look for him, she sees some feet on the other side of the bed. Approaching each time she crouches down to watch, frightening her and making her step back, but behind her she finds something that catches her. On the ground floor German tells Daniel that cats are a warning for people to stay away from the territory of an entity. Ruth returns and tells them that she is a witch who was tortured in that place. Suddenly Sarah's body is thrown and breaks the window, while a rope is around her neck and a fly comes out of her ear. Ruth wants to leave the place after what happened, but German tries to convince her otherwise, but Ruth just leaves. In Eric Daniel's room he sees his wife and his son behind a cloth, but when he approaches something attacks him. Ruth is putting away all the equipment when she sees in the recording how Sarah's death was, and when using thermal vision she sees an entity crossing the room. At that moment they hear a shot coming from the upper floor, and when they go to see it they see that it was Daniel who said that he heard many voices. German manages to calm him down and take the gun away from him. Daniel blames himself for everything that has happened, but German tells him that the person responsible is a witch who is under the house. Daniel takes them to the hole from which flies came out, and they enter a passageway that leads to a torture chamber, where in a cage they see the mummified corpse of a person. When German touches it he has visions of what happened in the past, seeing a woman being tortured and abandoned in that place. German says that the only way to kill a witch is to burn her, so he goes looking for gasoline with Daniel. He goes down alone, leaving Daniel looking for more gasoline. He also tells his daughter that if she doesn't leave in 10 minutes, leave the house. Since he cannot lose her like his wife. Going down he hears screams and sees a person being tortured. His flashlight begins to fail and he sees a person approaching in the dark. Ruth sees her mother. She tries to call her to get closer to her, but Ruth knows that this is not her mother and she refuses, so the witch tries to attack her and takes her body. She back with Daniel. She sees his family, his wife and his son try to stop the witch from being burned. Daniel just hugs them, but she was just the witch. As German is about to burn the witch, a possessed Ruth arrives and stabs him. Daniel was also possessed and bathes in gasoline to set himself on fire. German attacks his daughter and manages to get her away and lights the corpse. Ruth and Daniel come to their senses. In the morning, Daniel enters his son's room and notices several drawings of things that happened after Eric's death. Daniel begins to remember the day his son died. Daniel was sleeping when the witch appears in his room and a fly enters his ear. Then he wakes up and takes his son to the pool and drowns him. Then returns to the room as if nothing had happened. Daniel sits on the edge of the pool where he drowned his son and shoots himself in the head, while the witch watches him. Ruth comes out when she hears the shot and only sees Daniel dead. Thanks for watching this video. Subscribe to see more videos like this. If you wanted to see more, I recommend this movie.